Welcome to West Farthing Woodworks. In this video we're going to show you how to make your own carbide lathe tool. Carbide lathe tools are fantastic. They don't require any sharpening. They're really easy to use. They're really easy to learn and pick up on, especially if you're new to the lathe. And it doesn't require any sharpening equipment, which is fantastic because that can be a couple $100s or more depending on where you get the grinder and the attachments and things like that. So we're going to take it over to the bench and I'll show you how to make your own. A carbide lathe tool is simply a tool that has a carbide insert at the tip. These are often used in metalworking by metal lathe operators and by mill operators, and the carbide is a very, very strong and tough hard metal, so they use it to cut softer pieces of metal, which means it also cuts wood extraordinarily well. This is a round carbide tip on this tool here, and then this is a square, also called a rougher, on this tool here. All of these are homemade. We have turn handles. I mean, I have a lathe. There's no reason to buy a handle. A little copper ferrule on the top from a pipe fitting, and then obviously the carbide at the tip. So the way that these are made, there's a number of different ways, but one of the simplest ways is just to go down to Home Depot or Lowe's or any other home improvement store and get yourself a piece of square tube steel. This becomes your handle. Usually make it about 16-18 inches long because a bunch of it is going to be sunk into the wooden handle when you create the wooden handle for it. But this is one of the easier ways to do it because you can simply drill a hole in one side of here, put a nut on the bottom, and attach the carbide to the top. This is a 1/2 inch tube steel bar here. The inserts, these are actually, you get these online, and they come from companies that manufacture inserts for helical cutter heads, for thickness planers, for joiners. A lot of those items will have cutter heads that take individual little inserts like these, and they're extremely inexpensive. There's one of the inserts there. These inserts typically run about $1.80 to $2.50 a piece, and you do have to buy them in a package of 10. But even for $25 or so for a package of 10, it's still the same price or even just a couple bucks more, a couple bucks less than buying one of these inserts from a company that sells them specifically for the carbide lathe turning tools. But these inserts are 15 millimeter, which is a little bit over 1/2 inch, which is good because the bar that we're using is a 1/2 inch, so you do want it to stick a little over on both sides and a little over on the front. Buy a couple of the attachment screws as well from whatever company you order from them online, and it goes right through the piece of carbide, and it'll go right through whatever bar you use. Again, if you're going to use a hollow bar, you drill a little hole right near the end so that way the carbide sticks over the top just a little bit, and it sticks over the sides just a little bit. You punch it right through, put a nut on the bottom, and screw it in. It's that easy. After that, you turn a handle, put the handle on, and you're done. If you want to do it a little bit nicer, a little bit more permanent, you can go on Amazon and order a solid steel bar that's a 1/2 inch, and really all you have to do is just wear down a little recess on the end. That can be done with a file or a grinder. It's going to take a little time by hand with a file, but it's not something that's impossible. Wear down a recess on the end, and then drill and tap for the screw that holds it down. And at that point, all you have to do is put the insert into the recess and screw the screw in, and it's done. And at that point, again, you put a handle on it. This is totally optional. The very first time that I did this, I used a piece of tube steel like this. I ended up giving the tool to my brother after I wound up having these made, just because I used this a ton and it worked wonderfully, but after I had the other ones, I gave it to him, and now he uses it a lot. So again, after it's made, the easiest thing that you can do to make a handle is get a couple of pieces of just 4/4 hardwood. Anything will do. These are made out of oak. This is a piece of Spanish cedar. Take a 1/2 inch router bit and route a channel that runs as deeply as you want to put the piece of steel into it for the handle. I recommend at least 6 to 8 inches so it's really strong. But route it about a 1/4 inch deep and as deep as you want, and then take the other piece, do the exact same thing, and when those two pieces are put together and glued, they're going to form a square at the end, and it's going to be a 1/2 inch. Now you can make it a little bit wider so that way it's easier to insert the steel in the end, but all you have to do is mix up a little 2-part epoxy, drizzle it down in there, stuff the bar in as far as it needs to go, and then you go ahead and let it cure out. Now, obviously, once this is glued up, it does need to be turned before you insert the steel and before you finish it up. So all I did was I just turned it between centers, just like that, and at the very end, I turned down a 3/4 inch tenon. That's because I happened to find a pipe fitting in the home improvement store as well. That's also 3/4 of an inch. So when I turned down that 3/4 of an inch tenon, I was able to slide the pipe fitting over there and it held on really nice. And this isn't 100% necessary, but it kind of gives it that little bit of a finished look. So it looks a little bit more like a professional tool instead of just something that was cobbled together in my garage, which it was. But that's the carbide lathe tool and how to make it. Again, a very, very easy process. The only carbide insert you're going to have trouble finding are the round ones. This you're going to have to get from one of the companies that sells it specifically for the wood turning industry. However, the square cutters and the square cutters that have a tiny bit of a radius on them, those are all available online from places that sell for guys who are going to put on replacement cutters for their thickness planers and for their joiners and things like that. So look online for those. Total cost for the build, even if you have to buy 10 of these things, is about 35 bucks. It's really inexpensive. A piece of this solid bar steel, if you get it from Amazon, you can get I think a 5 or 6 foot piece for like 25, 30 bucks. And a piece of this tube steel from Home Depot is even less expensive than that. And you're going to get 4 or 5 tools out of each one. So again, purchase your cutter heads online. Find yourself a piece of steel that makes sense, something that's a 1/2 inch. Get 15 millimeter on the carbide heads so that way they stick over on the left, the right, and the front just a little bit. And for doing small turnings, rings, little bowls, things like that, this is a fantastic tool. It's very, very easy to use. And honestly, there's no reason to spend $130 or $140 a tool when it's absolutely that easy to make. So this was West Farthing Woodworks. Again, I have books published on Amazon. You can take a look at those. And this is how to make a carbide lathe tool.